Hello, welcome to HITC Sport. Alright, it's not often you're going to find a footballer willing to take a pay cut. So when it happens, it's like finding a roll of toilet paper in Sainsbury's, i.e. so beautifully rare. Let's take a look at every Premier League club and find the biggest pay cut someone took to sign for them. Arsenal, MIKEL Arteta, 70,000 to 60,000. When a player is so desperate to leave your club that he actively accepts a pay cut to do so, it's sort of a harsh slap in the face, especially considering most bank-obsessed footballers would rather chew off their own eyelids than forego the possibility of more cash. So when a player willingly gives his bank account a bloody nose, it's a bit of a harsh wake-up call for the fans. It's a bit like when your wife says she'd like to finalise the divorce papers so badly that she's even willing to chop off an ankle. Well, that's what happened on summer deadline day 2011, when Arteta, after 6 years in Everton's midfield, accepted a £10,000 weekly pay cut to jump ship and join Arsenal. It worked out in the end though. 10 years later, he's still employed by the club and earning £5 million a year. Aston Villa, Scott Sinclair, 100,000 to 60,000. If you need an example of the type of financial recklessness that eventually got Man City slapped with European ban, this is it. Yes lads, we live in a world where Manchester City were willingly paying Scott Sinclair, a footballer who they clearly had as much respect for as a dried piece of chewing gum stuck on the underside of a bus seat. They were paying him, Mr. Forgotten, £100,000 a week. Ridiculous. It's not even fair. I don't get it. That is essentially the equivalent of setting fire to a huge chunk of cash. A bit like the Joker in The Dark Knight. Anyway, he eventually moved on to Aston Villa in 2014. Now don't get me wrong, when he ended up stuck to the foot of the league, Villa fans probably thought his £60,000 a week contract was exorbitant. But the crazy thing is, he'd still taken a 40% pay cut. This man takes 40% pay cuts and can still afford 2 Ferraris. If I took a 40% pay cut, I'd be eating a bag full of pebbles for breakfast and wiping my arse with dry banana skins. Bournemouth, Dan Gosling, 25,000 to 15,000. For Bournemouth, the last few years, most players have signed for them to get paid more. But if we're talking pay cuts, Dan Gosling. Back when Newcastle signed him, he was a 21-year-old Everton starlet being chased by half the Premier League. The club were so desperate to sign him, they chose to give him a £25,000 a week contract while he was injured, based on nothing but hype. Anyway, 4 years later, he was coughed out to lowly championship side Bournemouth for £15,000 a week. He makes £35,000 a week now though, so it all worked out. Brighton, TOMASZ, KUSCZAK, 30,000 to 10,000. Remember when TOMASZ KUSCZAK compared himself to a slave? Forced to pocket £30,000 a week to sit on the bench at Man United. Lad, for that sort of cash, I would willingly drink a pool of human sweat out of a badger's belly button. KUSCZAK, all he had to do was just sit on the bench for one of the biggest clubs on the planet. So enough of the sob stories, please. So when he signed for Brighton in a measly £10,000 a week deal back in 2012, the poor fellow was probably driven to set up a GoFundMe donation page. I'm surprised he wasn't forced to collect food stamps and live in a tent. Burnley, Joe Hart, 120,000 to 45,000. Now this is a pay cut. On one hand, fair play to Joe Hart. He could have stuck out another year in the Man City reserves, pocketing £120,000 a week for doing literally nothing. But now he decided to sacrifice £75,000 a week to get first team football at Burnley. It's just a bit awkward, you can't even do that. Christ, when he's stuck collecting dust on the bench at Turf Moor, with a front row seat to his England rival destroying his career on a weekly basis, yeah, he probably just wishes he'd stayed put. Chelsea, John Terry, 150,000 to 50,000. It's very rare a top quality footballer will take a pay cut to stay at a club. So fair play John Terry, proving that actually, money isn't everything to the man. I mean, let's not forget he once turned down wages of £200,000 a week to join Man City. Had he not done that, it would have made the Wayne Bridge reveal a lot more interesting. If you thought the Man City training ground bus stop between Joey Barton and Usman Dabo was bad, Bridge would have probably drowned his teammate in a public urinal. In May 2016, a 36-year-old John Terry signed a new one-year deal, taking a hit of £90,000 a week to remain at Stamford Bridge, going from £150,000 a week to a mere 50. A pittance, mere breadcrumbs. How the f is he supposed to buy toilet paper with that? Considering he stuck around to lift a 5th Premier League title, it was probably a worthy sacrifice that he had to wipe his arse with cereal boxes. Crystal Palace, Gary Cahill, 130,000 to 70,000. Here's another former Chelsea captain watching his bank account hit by a blizzard. Listen, this is a man who managed to squeeze a career fitting of a superstar from a guy who could very easily have remained mid-table for the rest of his career. At 33 years old, Cahill was still earning £130,000 a week at Chelsea. Insane wages, but that's the modern game. Anyway, for a 34-year-old, he's still making a healthy living. £70,000 a week at Crystal Palace, but still, it's a 60k drop. For the first time in 10 years, he's probably started to worry about the gas bill. Everton, Wayne Rooney, 300,000 to 150,000. It kind of shows how much money Wayne Rooney was earning that he could afford a 50% pay cut, foregoing wages of £150,000 a week, and still be Everton's highest earning player of all time. I know Rooney was a top player, but £300,000 a week for kicking a piece of leather around a pitch? This man could literally afford to buy African countries with his salary. I can barely buy fucking toilet paper. And yes, that is the 4th time I've referenced it, but I'm a bit touchy, okay? I haven't wiped it in 6 days. For the love of God, stop hoarding the rolls. I'm having to use my own pillowcases. Leicester, Paul Konchesky, 50,000 to 10,000. I'm not sure how Paul Konchesky ever found himself in a position where he was able to actually squeeze a contract out of Liverpool worth £50,000 a week. Judging by his performance as a left back, he should have been paying them. Yes, nowadays 50k might seem like pocket change, but 10 years ago that was a hefty wage for a top flight left back, even though it was also the same wage which almost caused Ashley Cole to crash his car. Konchesky will leave Anfield 1 year into a 4-year contract, instead agreeing a new 3-year deal with Leicester, stuck in the Championship on just 10 grand a week. In a way, I commend Konchesky. He could have just sat in the Liverpool reserves, making that sort of hefty cash until 2014. Although, considering that club would soon end up with a shortage of left backs, and we're forced to put John Flanagan in there. Oh good Christ! Could Konchesky have actually ended up in a goddamn title race? Liverpool, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, 180,000 to 120,000. This one just shocks me, and you know what? Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, I salute you. Let's be honest, the lad's last job wasn't a bad gig. £180,000 a week to sit on the Arsenal wing, picking up a couple of FA Cups and getting regular European football. But such was this lad's determination to play central midfield week in, week out, he actually accepted a 60k loss to sign a measly £120,000 a week deal at Boyhood Club Liverpool. And you know what? According to reports, he'd also turned down a £220,000 a week offer from Chelsea. So you know what? Fair play to the man. This lad could well have been the next Danny Drinkwater at Stamford Bridge, or just left frustrated in a stagnating Arsenal team, but no. Because of this pay cut, the lad now has medals coming out his ears. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, well done. Man City, Andy Cole, 25,000 to 15,000. Manchester City and pay cuts. Is it really a thing? I can't find any in the last 10 years. Literally, I mean, when the football world can see this club willingly chucking 9 figures at relegation threatened fluff like Scott Sinclair, who in a turtle's nutsack would ever accept a pay cut at Man City? For this one, I'm literally going to have to go all the way back to 2005, 3 years before the oil money reigned in. This was back when the club's policy was to not pay any squad members over £25,000 a week. Andy Cole was on those wages at Fulham, and when he signed for City, was forced to settle for £15,000 a week. Man United, ODION IGHALO, 240,000 to 120,000. Yeah, here we have ODION IGHALO declaring that he took a pay cut to join Man United. A pay cut of almost 40%, I'm hearing. Christ, fair play IGHALO. The commitment from the man to play for his boyhood club, it's staggering. He's almost willing to live on a diet of pot noodles, tins of beans, and cups of fucking grass. Oh, wait, what was it? No, he's still earning £120,000 a week. This fella is saying he'd happily forego $6 million a year to play for Manchester United on a permanent basis. It sounds great. It sounds like a massive sacrifice, but go back 3 years, before the big money moved to China. You know, when IGHALO was gladly missing open goals against his boyhood club. Tell him that by the age of 30, he'd be earning £120,000 a week to play for Man United. He'd rip your goddamn arm off. Newcastle, Andy Carroll, 60,000 to 22,500. Well, according to Joey Barton, Newcastle once told him to accept a £30,000 a week pay cut as he lay stuffed in a prison cell. But he called their bluff, didn't accept it, so we're gonna have to go with Andy Carroll instead. This is a man who was on a hefty £60,000 a week at West Ham, but returned to Boyd Club Newcastle in the summer for a basic flat fee of £22,000 a week. Well, of course, with incentives and bonuses for when he plays, which he doesn't. For Christ's sake, this is a lower wage than what the club were paying him back in 2010. Norwich, Grant Hanley, 40,000 to 25,000. Yeah, here we have Grant Hanley, a 28-year-old Scottish defender picking up 28 grand a week at Norwich. I'm guessing the lad probably had to sell the Lambo and remortgage the house after coming down from the Geordie high life when he spent a year in the Championship picking up a weekly wage of £40,000 a week to just keep quiet and sit on the bench. Sheffield United, Billy Sharp, 24,000 to 12,000. Again, fair play to Billy Sharp. Here's another pay cut which ended up in promotion by slashing his 20 grand a week wage at Leeds to return to the Blades at Sheffield United. He's eventually managed to take himself from a Championship bench into scoring a few goals for a top half Premier League club. So there you have it, lads. Sometimes it pays off to pay little. Southampton, Jamie Redknapp, 25,000 to 12,000. Again, I'm going to have to go back to 2005 for this one. Jamie Redknapp, on a relatively good chunk of money at Spurs, £25,000 a week was a lot of money back then. He then takes a significant pay cut to help out his dad in a relegation battle with the Saints. it did not pay off. Tottenham, Emmanuel Adebayor, 175,000 to 100,000. Yeah, it seems a bit strange that Emmanuel Adebayor would feature in a video about pay cuts. It's like seeing Rebel Wilson bringing out a fitness DVD. Anyway, yeah, back in 2012, the Togo centre forward left a mammoth £175,000 a week contract at Man City to pick up a measly 100k at Spurs. I'm still convinced he only did this to further piss off the Arsenal fans. Watford, Danny Welbeck, 100,000 to 45,000. Well, this is pretty simple. Contrary to insane reports, Danny Welbeck is only pocketing £45,000 a week to rot in the Watford treatment room, alright? Not these crazy 9-figure sums bandied around by the media. It's a drop of £55,000 a week from his contract at Arsenal. West Ham, Joe Cole, 92,000 to 50,000. Okay, yes, Jack Wilshere has taken a pay cut at West Ham, yes, but it's just 10k down from his £110,000 a week contract at Arsenal. Considering he came up alongside Aaron Ramsey, who now earns 4 times that to play with Ronaldo, he's probably a bit miffed. Anyway, the biggest pay deduction was Joe Cole swapping his £92,000 Liverpool wages for 50k at West Ham. Wolves, Paul Ince, 2 million. Okay, I'll admit, I don't have the exact figures for this one, but back in August 2002, Paul Ince, a massive name in English football, swapped Middlesbrough to hunt a promotion hunt with Wolves, and according to this report, was taking a £2 million a year pay cut to play for Wolves. Anyway, that's the end of it, lads. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Have I got any of these wrong? Are there any pay cuts you can think of? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, I'll talk to you in a while.